Hello, and welcome to another of Method's Alpha Dungeon Guides. Today we're taking a look at Halls of Valor. I'm Chris Potter, and alongside me as always is Syrups.
Hey guys!
Halls of Valor was one of the first dungeons to release on the Alpha, but in my opinion it's just as good as some of the more recent releases. The first couple of packs don't really do anything, they just do damage to the tank. But the first pack you'll actually need to pay attention to is the group with the dragon mob. The casters will shoot lightning bolts at random players that deal damage, and the dragons will spawn these lightning tornado things that will hurt a lot if you stand in them. The mobs will also put an effect on a player that after a few seconds will explode, dealing damage to everyone around them. This is visually indicated by the circle around you.
The first boss you'll encounter is called Heimdall. The first ability that he casts is Horn of Valor. He will deal a small amount of AoE damage to everyone in the group, and then it will summon dragons alongside of the bridge. These dragons will fill the bridge with lightning in one of 3 available spots. The amount of dragons spawning each time varies from 1 to 3, and you have to make sure you don't take damage from this, as it is very deadly. What we did is that we had our healer call out where the dragons were coming from, either front, middle or back, and from there on it was fairly easy to dodge them. After that he'll cast Dancing Blade. It is a targeted mechanic which will knock the player back, and then it will leave a blade spinning on the ground. Just make sure to move out of it.
Now after the first boss you're going to come to a stairway where you have to kill one of the packs on either side to go up the stairs. There's also a larger mob that will patrol between each side, so watch out for him. These mobs actually do a number of abilities to watch out for. First, they spawn these lines of lightning on the ground that's going to deal high ticking damage if you stand in them. They will also place a rune on the ground that will heal any players or mobs standing in them. The optimal positioning for this would be for the tank to drag them out as soon as it spawns, and then rotate 360 degrees so that the tank themselves are standing in the healing rune, but the mobs are outside of it. The caster will also put a shield effect on some of the mobs, making them immune to damage. This needs to be offensively dispelled quickly by things like Purge, Trank Shot, and Dispel Magic. You should try to stun these mobs as much as possible, but be careful not to stun them right after a healing rune is spawned, or they're going to be stuck in the healing rune and your tank will not be able to move them.
After trash, you'll enter the big hall as we call it. The mobs in there is somewhat similar to the ones you've just killed. They have one extra cast though, called Edge, and it will deflect damage over time to random target if not interrupted. Really not a big deal, but if you can interrupt it, try and interrupt it. After that we went to the left side, and it will bring you to 2 other trash packs. These can be CC'd with the beers that's on the table. You can simply walk by them. But yeah, yet again, you have to be somewhat quick or else they'll reactivate and they'll fight you. So make sure you move on quickly. Once you reach the stairs, there will be a big pack of mobs consisting of 5 to 6 mobs. They have 2 abilities. One of them is called Breach Armor, which is a tank ability, and it will decrease the armor of the tank. Elsewise, they have a cast called Cleansing Flames. It is a targeted spell. Once he finishes his cast, he will channel it towards the targeted player and follow him around. It does quite a lot of damage if not interrupted, so make sure to try and interrupt it, or stun the mobs, etc.
Right before the second boss, you will have to deal with 2 big spell mobs. One is called Solstin. Solstin's main ability is called Eye of the Storm, and he will first spawn a giant bubble that looks a lot like the DK's anti-magic zone ability. He'll then channel a cast that does big ticking damage to everyone. This damage is reduced by a lot if you're standing inside the bubble, so make sure you get into it quickly. The other big mob is Olmar the Enlightened. Olmar's main ability is called Sanctify, and Sanctify is very similar to an ability you might remember from Heart of Fear, where these squirrels will just come out of the boss that you need to dodge. They're a lot easier to dodge, however, if you stand further away. The second boss is Herja, and this boss will basically gain the mechanics of the previous 2 mobs, depending on whose spirit you're tanking her next to. While she is on that side of the spirit, she will gain a stacking buff increasing the damage of the spell she is using. This means that you want to keep the boss moving between the sides every now and then to stop her stacks getting too high. But luckily the boss will kind of do this for you, as she occasionally does a knockback to the tank. When the tank is knocked, he should try to get knocked back in the opposite side, and let the boss move to him. This allows for a smooth and consistent rotation between each side. Be sure not to stand near the tanks when they are getting knocked however, as the knock is a conal ability and will do a lot of damage to non-tanks. You should deal with the other abilities the exact same way you did on the previous trash. The boss also has her own ability called Expel Light, which causes a player to explode, dealing damage in 8 yards after 6 seconds, and it's very similar to the ability the trash has at the start of the dungeon. After the second boss, you will need to make your way back down through the hall to the portal on the opposite side. The portal will take you to the hunting grounds. And this place is filled with neutral mobs that you should be careful not to accidentally pull, as you can skip a lot of them and a lot of the hostile mobs too. When you first go through the portal, a dragon will land. If you are quick and stay to the side, you can skip this mob out entirely. The bull mobs here will do a knockback around them, so be careful you don't get knocked into other trash. They are relatively easy to deal with though. The big bears here can be very dangerous, especially if you pull multiple at once. This is because they apply a damage taken debuff, increasing the damage the tank will take by 100% each, and it stacks for every bear that does it. There are wolves around the boss's lair which have an ability called Leap for the Throat, and this is very similar to the quest mobs in the Grand you might remember. You basically just need to keep moving so they don't leap where you are. You'll want to make sure you have cleared out a spacious area to fight the boss for the second time, because his fixate ability does require some kiting room.
You'll face off Fenrir first, in one of two positions, either to the left or to the right when you come in. The boss is pretty straightforward. The first ability he has is a leap to players. You need to make sure you're spread out for this to not get too many bleed debuffs. These are applied every time he jumps to a new target. The boss also casts Unnerving Howl. It will interrupt all spellcasting and lock them out for 3 seconds, so make sure to not be casting while he's casting. When the boss retreats back into his cave, he keeps the 2 abilities from before, but gain a new one. It is called Scent of Blood. It will fixate a random member in the group, and you'll need to run away from him, or you will most likely die. And this is why you have to clear the area around the boss, to make sure you have some kiting space. After that, you'll make your way back the same way you came in, and take the portal back into the big hall. You get into the middle of the big hall, and the big doors will open, and a really cool looking bridge will open up. You slide automatically, so make sure you enjoy the amazing scenery that's there. Once you reach the top, you'll have some options to make. There are 4 mobs, and you can only activate one at a time. These mobs all have different abilities. One of them has an interrupt. Another one has an ability called Call Ancestor. It will basically spawn an ad, and you need to make sure you kill it before it reaches the boss itself, or it will heal him. A third one will cast Wicked Dagger, which is a debuff that reduces healing taken and does a small amount of damage to a random player. The last one has a tank ability called Sever. It will deal a significant amount of damage to the tank, and it will increase his physical damage taken. You gotta keep in mind that you can only kill one mob at a time, but their ability transfers to the others. So depending on your group composition, you decide what way you wanna do it. However, the 2 last mobs you'll have to fight at once. After the trash, a big shield will appear on the floor. From our experience, it will bug out if anyone but the tank will take the shield, so we always let him handle it. Once your tank picks up the shields, the boss will enter the room and the boss fight will start shortly after. The boss itself only has 4 abilities, and they are somewhat easy as long as you stay within a decent range of the boss. The first ability we saw was Fellblade Rush. He'll target a random member and charge towards him, dealing a small amount of damage. After that, he will cast his main ability, Ragnarok. and this is where the shield comes into play. Your tank needs to use his extra action button to pop the shield, and everyone has to make sure they get behind the tank to avoid certain death. The boss will knock the shield off the tank's hand and slam it in the ground. Shortly after, he will pick it up himself and use it, deflecting all damage in a frontal cone. So if you want to damage him, you need to make sure to move behind him. The boss also casts Savage Blades, which is a tank ability, and your tank needs to make sure to use active mitigation when this cast finishes, or you'll get a debuff called Rag Slash. It will leave a dot in the tank and it will hurt quite a bit. The boss also spawns some small puddles on the ground. You need to move out of them, elsewise they will stack up and they will kill you eventually.
Now once you've defeated that boss, Odyn will decide that you are worthy for honourable combat. While the boss's health may scare you initially, you'll be happy to know that he does end the fight at 80%. His first ability is Radiant Tempest. He'll grip everyone to him and then make a huge circle on the ground. He will then do another cast, and when that cast completes, everyone within the circle is going to take big damage. It is easy to avoid if you start running as soon as you're gripped in, but blinks and speed boosts are very helpful here. The boss will also spawn these Spears of Light. They don't really do anything until he casts another ability called Shatter Spears. This causes the spears to explode and they send out waves of light that you need to dodge. Now his last mechanic is the most interesting. He'll brand each player with a coloured mark above their head, and 5 circles on the ground will light up with their own colour mark. Each player then has a short amount of time to run to the corresponding mark on the ground, and this will give them a buff that increases damage and healing by a large amount. We recommend to make the most out of this buff that you save Bloodlust for when this comes. At 80%, Odyn will concede to you and you will have completed the dungeon. This concludes our guides to the Hall of Valor. If you found this helpful, be sure to check out our other guides and like and comment. Thanks for watching guys, bye.
See you another time guys.